Barron Trump has always remained in the shadow of his famous family. He avoided public appearances, did not give interviews, and did not show political ambitions. But now, at the age of 18, he has taken an unexpected step that has made the whole world pay attention to him. His refusal to participate in the Republican National Convention raised a lot of questions. Is this a sign of his complete withdrawal from politics, or on the contrary, a cunning move before something bigger? What is really going on behind the closed doors of the Trump family, and what does the future hold for Barron? From the moment Barron William Trump was born, his life was destined to be different. As the youngest son of one of the most powerful and controversial figures in modern American history, he was thrust into the public eye even before he could walk or talk. Unlike his older half-siblings, Donald Jr., Ivanka, Eric, and Tiffany, who had long been involved in the business and political empire of their father, Barron remained a mystery. His childhood was marked by both extreme privilege and intense privacy, a paradox that defined his upbringing. His early years were spent in the luxurious Trump Tower in New York City. Unlike typical children who grow up sharing bedrooms with siblings and playing in local parks, Barron had an entire floor to himself, a space carefully curated by his mother, Melania Trump. She was determined to raise him differently from his father's other children, instilling in him values of discipline, privacy, and cultural awareness. Melania, originally from Slovenia, made sure that Barron learned her native language, allowing him to communicate fluently with his grandparents and develop a deep appreciation for his European heritage. Despite his lineage, Melania insisted on shielding Barron from the public eye as much as possible. Unlike his older siblings, who were often paraded in front of cameras from a young age, Barron was kept out of the media spotlight. While Donald Jr. and Ivanka were making headlines as young business figures in the Trump organization, Barron was living a relatively quiet life, protected from the ever-growing political storm surrounding his father. When Donald Trump announced his candidacy for the presidency in 2015, Barron was only 9 years old. While the rest of the family played active roles in the campaign, Barron remained absent from the rallies and interviews. He was not seen giving speeches or standing behind his father at major events. Even after Trump won the election in 2016, Barron and Melania did not immediately move to the White House. Instead, Melania chose to stay behind in New York so that Barron could finish his school year at Columbia Grammar and Preparatory School. This decision was widely discussed in the media, with many speculating that Melania was reluctant to take on the full responsibilities of being First Lady. Others believed it was a strategic move to maintain stability in Barron's life amid the chaos of his father's sudden rise to power. When Barron finally moved into the White House in 2017, he became the first boy to live there since John F. Kennedy Jr.'s presence was historic, but his lifestyle remained remarkably private. Unlike past presidential children, such as Sasha and Malia Obama, who attended the prestigious Sidwell Friends School, Barron was enrolled at St. Andrew's Episcopal School in Maryland. This choice reinforced Melania's desire for him to have a different experience, one that focused on individual growth rather than political legacy. Although he lived in the most scrutinized residence in the world, Barron rarely appeared in public. His few appearances, such as walking alongside his parents or attending the annual White House Easter egg roll, became viral moments. The media focused on his height, his reserved expressions, and his interactions with his parents. Over time, it became clear that Barron was not like the other Trump children. While his siblings thrived in the spotlight, Barron seemed to actively avoid it. One of the most striking things about Barron was his towering height. By the time he was a teenager, he was already taller than his father, standing at over 6 feet 7 inches. His remarkable stature fueled speculation about whether he would pursue sports, particularly basketball or soccer. While living in Washington, D.C., Barron participated in training sessions with the U.S. Soccer Development Academy. His love for soccer was well known, and he was frequently seen wearing jerseys from Arsenal, his favorite football club. However, despite his athletic build, there were no confirmed plans for him to pursue a professional career in sports. In 2021, after his father left the presidency, Barron and Melania relocated to Florida, settling in the opulent Mar-a-Lago estate. He was then enrolled at Oxbridge Academy, a prestigious private school known for its academic excellence and emphasis on personal development. This transition marked a new chapter in Barron's life, away from the political storm that had dominated his childhood. Unlike his older siblings, who immediately resumed their business and political activities, Barron continued to keep a low profile, avoiding the public eye as much as possible. Despite his privacy, the curiosity surrounding Barron never faded. The public speculated about his future. Would he follow in his father's footsteps, or would he forge his own path? His decision to decline an invitation to serve as a delegate at the 2024 Republican National Convention added even more intrigue to his story. This move raised questions about whether he was deliberately distancing himself from the Trump political dynasty or simply uninterested in public life. His refusal to participate in the convention led to divided opinions. Supporters of Donald Trump saw it as a personal decision that should be respected, arguing that Barron had every right to choose his own destiny. Critics, however, speculated that it indicated tensions within the Trump family, suggesting that Barron might not fully align with his father's political ambitions. Some theorized that he was strategically positioning himself for a future career outside of politics, perhaps in business, sports, or even international affairs. Throughout his childhood, Barron had been the enigma of the Trump family. Unlike Donald Jr. and Eric, who actively sought the spotlight and became vocal figures in their father's political movement, Barron maintained a striking silence. He had no social media presence, made no public statements, and never expressed any interest in the family's business empire. This air of mystery only heightened public interest, making every rare appearance or decision he made a subject of speculation. As he reached adulthood, one question remained. What would Barron Trump do next? His choices would inevitably shape how he was perceived, whether as the quiet son who avoided politics or as an unexpected player in the Trump legacy. Would he choose to embrace the expectations placed upon him, or would he break away from the family mold and build his own identity? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. Barron Trump's story was far from over. As Barron Trump transitioned into his teenage years, the scrutiny surrounding him only grew. While his father's presidency and subsequent political career dominated headlines, Barron remained an enigmatic figure, rarely seen in public and even more rarely heard from. Unlike his half-siblings who actively participated in political discourse and business ventures, Barron seemed to be charting a different course, one that prioritized privacy over publicity. His time at Oxbridge Academy in Florida allowed him to maintain a relatively normal routine, at least as normal as possible for someone bearing the Trump name. At school, he was described by classmates as reserved but intelligent, someone who kept a tight circle of friends and didn't actively seek attention. His interest in academics, particularly history and political science, fueled speculation that he might eventually enter public service, but there were no clear indications of his future aspirations. His fluency in multiple languages, inherited from his Slovenian mother, also set him apart from his siblings, who primarily focused on business and media. Despite his best efforts to remain in the background, Barron's presence at certain key events reignited public curiosity. When he appeared alongside his father at high-profile gatherings, his towering height and composed demeanor made him impossible to ignore. Social media was flooded with commentary on his appearance, with many marveling at his 6 feet 7 inches frame and wondering whether he would pursue a career in athletics. While he had participated in soccer training programs in the past, there was no indication that he intended to pursue sports professionally. His decision to decline an invitation to serve as a delegate at the 2024 Republican National Convention further cemented the idea that Barron was not yet interested in political life. The announcement, made through his mother's office, was brief but significant. It marked one of the first times Barron's name had been formally associated with a political decision. The fact that he had been offered such a role at all was a testament to how closely the Republican establishment aligned itself with the Trump family name. Yet his decision to step away from this opportunity led to much speculation. Some viewed it as an attempt to avoid becoming entangled in the political battles that had consumed his family. Others believed it was a strategic move. Perhaps Barron was simply not ready yet, but might later emerge as a major political player when the time was right. Those within Trump's inner circle noted that Barron was more politically aware than the public realized, often engaging in discussions with his father and providing insight into issues affecting younger generations. If he ever chose to step into the spotlight, it would likely be on his own terms and timeline. The dynamics within the Trump family also played a role in shaping Barron's choices. His older siblings had been deeply involved in their father's political career from the beginning, but they had also faced significant backlash and public scrutiny. Donald Jr. and Eric had become key figures in the Trump organization, while Ivanka had served in the White House as a senior advisor. The expectations for Barron were unclear. Would he follow their path or forge his own identity outside of the family's legacy? One of the most pressing questions was how much influence Melania had over her son's decisions. She had always been fiercely protective of Barron, ensuring that he was shielded from unnecessary media exposure and political obligations. Her presence at key events was often more subdued than that of other members of the Trump family, reinforcing the idea that she prioritized Barron's well-being above political ambition. Insiders speculated that her reluctance to push Barron into politics stemmed from a desire to let him choose his own future without the weight of expectations. As Barron approached adulthood, the public remained divided on what his next steps would be. Would he remain a private figure, focusing on education and business? Or would he ultimately be drawn into the political machine that had defined his family for decades? His continued avoidance of the spotlight suggested that, at least for now, he was content to observe rather than participate. However, history had shown that those bearing the Trump name rarely stayed out of the public eye for long. The coming years would determine whether Barron Trump would embrace the legacy of his family or carve out his own unique path in a world that constantly sought to define him before he had the chance to define himself. As Barron Trump transitioned further into adulthood, speculation about his future only intensified. With his 18th birthday marking a significant milestone, many wondered whether he would finally step into the political or business world that had defined his family's legacy. Yet, true to form, Barron remained an enigma, his plans carefully guarded from the public eye. One of the defining aspects of Barron's journey was the contrast between his upbringing and that of his half-siblings. While Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric had been groomed from an early age to take on leadership roles within the Trump organization and later his father's political empire, Barron's path was different. His mother, Melania, had played a crucial role in ensuring that he was shielded from public scrutiny for as long as possible. Even as he reached adulthood, she remained a guiding force, emphasizing the importance of education and personal development over immediate involvement in the family business. The world first got a glimpse of Barron's emerging independence when he declined to serve as a delegate at the 2024 Republican National Convention. His refusal to take on this symbolic role raised eyebrows and led to widespread discussion. Some interpreted it as a rejection of his father's political ambitions, while others believed it was a strategic decision, allowing him to step into the political arena on his own terms in the future. Despite his avoidance of politics, there were indications that Barron was deeply interested in current affairs. Those close to the family noted that he had a sharp mind for debate and often engaged in conversations about domestic and international issues. Unlike his father, who thrived in the spotlight, Barron preferred a more analytical approach, weighing arguments before forming an opinion. This distinction fueled speculation that if he ever chose to enter politics, he might adopt a different style, one more measured and deliberate than the fiery rhetoric his father was known for. While political engagement remained uncertain, Barron's interest in business was another point of intrigue. Growing up within the Trump family meant being exposed to the complexities of real estate, branding, and global markets from an early age. Even if he had not publicly expressed an interest in following in his father's footsteps, it was almost inevitable that he had absorbed lessons from years of watching the Trump organization operate. Reports surfaced that he had been quietly exploring different aspects of business, potentially considering a role in finance or technology rather than real estate. Another unique aspect of Barron's future was his educational path. Unlike his siblings, who had attended the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, Barron had reportedly expressed interest in attending a different institution, possibly one with a focus on international relations or law. His multilingual skills, inherited from his mother's Slovenian roots, could position him for a global career that extended beyond the traditional business dealings of the Trump family. If he pursued such a path, it would further differentiate him from his siblings and carve out a distinct identity for himself. Despite his reserved nature, Barron's public appearances remained moments of fascination. Whenever he was seen with his father at public events, the internet buzzed with comments about his towering height and quiet demeanor. Some observers noted that he seemed to carry himself with a level of composure and restraint uncommon in the Trump family. This only added to the mystery surrounding him. Was he being prepared for a future leadership role, or was he intentionally distancing himself from the limelight? As time went on, another question emerged. Would Barron eventually take a more active role in the Trump organization? While he had shown no immediate interest in stepping into his father's empire, his name alone carried weight. If he ever decided to enter the business world, there was little doubt that he would be given opportunities to take on leadership roles. However, sources close to the family suggested that he was in no rush, preferring to focus on personal growth before making any major career decisions. One thing was clear: Barron Trump's next steps would be watched closely. Whether he chose to follow the well-worn path of his siblings or forge his own unique trajectory, the world was eager to see what the future held for the most elusive member of the Trump family. As Barron Trump continued to grow into adulthood, the speculation surrounding his future only intensified. Having maintained a life largely out of the spotlight, he found himself at a crossroads between remaining a private figure and stepping into the public sphere. While he had distanced himself from the political engagements of his father and siblings, the weight of the Trump legacy remained an undeniable influence on his trajectory. Despite declining to serve as a delegate at the 2024 Republican National Convention, Barron's name was continuously mentioned in political circles. Many wondered whether his reluctance was simply a strategic pause before making a future move. Unlike Donald Jr. and Eric, who had embraced their roles in supporting their father's political career, Barron's measured approach made him a wild card in the broader Trump narrative. The possibility of him stepping into politics in a more calculated manner, rather than with the outspoken aggression often associated with the Trump brand, was an idea that gained traction among political analysts. Even outside of politics, Barron's potential involvement in the Trump organization was a subject of considerable interest. With the company having been managed primarily by his older siblings, there were questions about whether he would eventually assume a leadership role. Unlike his siblings, who had been immersed in the family business from a young age, Barron had taken a more academic approach, focusing on education and personal development. Some reports suggested that he had been exploring opportunities beyond real estate, looking into technology, international business, and even law. His ability to speak multiple languages could position him as a bridge between the Trump brand and foreign markets, opening doors that his father and siblings had not yet pursued. At the same time, there was growing speculation about Barron's personal interests and how they might shape his future. Unlike his father and older brothers, Barron had shown an interest in fields beyond business and politics. His time at Oxbridge Academy and the potential choice of university could signal a departure from the traditional Trump mold. If he pursued a career in international relations or law, it could mark the beginning of a new chapter for the Trump legacy, one that relied less on media spectacle and more on strategic influence behind the scenes. Barron's height and athletic build had also led to widespread discussions about whether he would pursue a professional sports career. Having trained with soccer academies in his younger years, he was known to have a deep appreciation for the sport. While there were no indications that he would play professionally, his passion for athletics set him apart from the rest of his family. If he chose to pursue a future in sports management or international sports relations, it could further diversify the Trump family's presence in various industries. One major factor in Barron's life was the continued influence of his mother, Melania Trump. Known for her reserved nature and protective stance toward her son, Melania remained a pivotal figure in shaping Barron's decisions. While Donald Trump's older children had been mentored primarily by their father in business and politics, Barron's upbringing was distinctly different. Melania had ensured that he maintained a European cultural influence, emphasizing the importance of education, discretion, and maintaining a refined public image. Her guidance made it clear that Barron's path would not be dictated solely by the expectations placed upon him by the Trump name, but rather by a careful consideration of his own ambitions and interests. However, even with Melania's guidance, Barron could not fully escape the expectations that came with being a Trump. The media continued to scrutinize his every move, and public interest in his next steps remained high. Would he eventually embrace the political arena, following in the footsteps of his father? Would he revolutionize the Trump business empire by incorporating modern industries? Or would he carve out an entirely new path that distanced him from the family name altogether? As he approached his early 20s, Barron faced a defining period in his life. The choices he made would determine whether he remained the quiet, elusive member of the Trump family, or whether he would step into a more prominent role. Regardless of the direction he chose, one thing was certain: Barron Trump's future was not just a personal matter, but a subject of national and even global intrigue. As Barron Trump entered adulthood, the weight of expectation loomed over him more than ever. Unlike his half-siblings, who had cemented their roles within the Trump family's political and business empire, Barron remained an enigmatic figure. With his father continuing to exert influence in politics and business, and his older siblings playing active roles in both, the question remained: would Barron choose to follow their path or carve out his own unique identity? Speculation over Barron's future continued to dominate media discussions. His decision to decline a delegate position at the 2024 Republican National Convention had only fueled curiosity. Was he deliberately distancing himself from politics? Or was he simply not ready to step into the limelight? Some observers believe that his absence from the political stage was a temporary stance, one that allowed him to complete his education and explore personal interests before making any significant commitments. Unlike his siblings, Barron had largely avoided media interviews and public statements. His social media presence was virtually non-existent, and he maintained a level of privacy unusual for someone bearing the Trump name. This approach led to widespread debate about whether he was rejecting the Trump legacy or merely biding his time before making a calculated move. Regardless, his silence only deepened public interest in him. His education remained a critical factor in shaping his future. Unlike his father and older siblings, who attended the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business, Barron seemed interested in a different academic route. Some reports suggested he was considering a degree in international relations or law, fields that could position him for a career in diplomacy or global business rather than real estate or politics. If he pursued such a path, it would further set him apart from his family's traditional areas of expertise and indicate a desire to establish himself on his own terms. At the same time, rumors of Barron being groomed for a business leadership role within the Trump organization persisted. With his unique background, multilingual skills, and international upbringing, some analysts speculated that he could be the key to expanding the Trump brand into European and Asian markets. His mother, Melania, had ensured that he maintained strong ties to his Slovenian heritage, which could serve as a valuable asset in developing business relationships abroad. However, no definitive statements had been made about his involvement in the company, leaving the question of his business ambitions open-ended. One of the biggest factors in Barron's future was the role of his mother. Melania had always been fiercely protective of him, ensuring that he had a different upbringing from his older siblings. She had been careful to keep him out of political battles, public controversies, and media exploitation. Her influence suggested that whatever decision Barron ultimately made, it would be one based on careful consideration rather than external pressure. Would he remain in the background, guided by her emphasis on privacy? Or would he eventually step forward, embracing the public role that his last name seemed to demand? As Barron approached his early 20s, the choices before him became more critical. If he decided to join the Trump organization, he would be stepping into an empire with a legacy of success, controversy, and scrutiny. If he pursued politics, he would inevitably be compared to his father, with all the advantages and disadvantages that entailed. If he chose an entirely separate path, whether in sports, academia, or global business, he would face the challenge of redefining what it meant to be a Trump outside of the family's well-established domains. The media's fascination with Barron was unlikely to wane, no matter what path he chose. His rare public appearances continued to draw attention, with every word and gesture analyzed for hints about his future. Would he continue to remain in the shadows, or would he finally embrace the role that so many assumed he was destined for? While the answer remained unclear, one thing was certain: Barron Trump's story was far from over. His decisions in the coming years would not only shape his own legacy, but also influence the future trajectory of the Trump family itself.